Today we're going to talk about the Abolitionist Movement. Abolitionists work to end slavery, and the Abolitionist Movement is about how people work to gain rights and freedom for slaves. An abolitionist is someone who wants to end or stop slavery. Now, most of the abolitionists would be located in the North, since the slavery is located in the South. Think back to when we went over the cotton gin, and there was a direct correlation between the invention of the cotton gin with mass production of cotton and then the population of slaves. This is just another chart that shows how quickly the population of slaves rose from 1800 to 1860, right before the Civil War. It went from just shy of 1 million to just shy of 4 million. So the abolitionist movement is when abolitionists demanded the immediate freeing of slaves. They wanted slaves to be freed right now, not like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, something like that. They wanted slaves to be freed immediately. They believed that slavery was wrong, that it was morally wrong, so it went against the morals of a person, the ethics of what people stand for. And they thought it was cruel and inhumane. So in other words, against what humans should ever experience. They also thought it was a violation of the principles of democracy. So it goes against the ideals that our founding fathers set up with the creation of our government, that all men and women are created equal. So abolitionist leaders included both men and women. The first one we'll talk about is Harriet Tubman. She was an escaped slave that led many slaves to freedom along the Underground Railroad. Now, there's different numbers out there as to how many she helped and how many times she went along the Underground Railroad. Some people think that she made as many as 19 trips, although more studies have shown that number to be anywhere from 11 to 13. And originally it was estimated that she helped nearly 300 people, and that number now is probably closer to like 60 or 70. However, having said that, that is still an amazing feat that she accomplished. She dedicated her life to help others. Eventually, she's going to be a spy for the Union during the Civil War, and then she's also going to dedicate her life later on for women's suffrage movement. And just a quick reminder that the Underground Railroad were routes to the north used by escaped slaves. So she actually escaped Maryland and then went up to Pennsylvania and eventually beyond to Canada. But she made routine trips back and forth over many years to help her family members first and then other people she knew from Maryland. This is a typical reward poster that you would see during the time of the Underground Railroad. When slaves would escape, they would post these all over in hopes to try to get them back. Now, it's kind of deceiving because you automatically think you'll get $150 for capturing a certain runaway slave, but if you read the fine print towards the end of the passage or the advertisement, then you'll see what the stipulations are as to how much money you get from where. But basically, these describe the slave. They describe maybe where what they worked on a plantation, where they were at, where they were seen last, that type of thing. Maybe what direction they might be going. And then, like I said, at the end, it gives a synopsis as to how much money you would get based on where you find the person that fits the description. But these were very common during the Underground Railroad. Another abolitionist was William Lloyd Garrison, and he was a journalist and publisher of the newspaper The Liberator, and he helped form the American Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. He dedicated his later years to helping slaves escape through not going along the Underground Railroad, but publishing articles about them and trying to promote independence for slavery or slaves. He also tried to get Frederick Douglass to work alongside him. However, Frederick Douglass wanted to go off on his own and do his own things. He was a former slave that ran away from his master, and he also from Maryland, actually. And then he spoke out publicly against slavery. And he was also a statesman. In other words, he was willing to work through political channels. He worked closely with Abraham Lincoln on many occasions. He also founded a newspaper of his own. It was called the North Star, and that came to be in 1847. So not only was he a former slave, but then he also learned to read and write, and he dedicated his life in the public eye to try to help free slaves elsewhere.